Hello, what's up? Welcome back. So today is an exciting yet nerve-wracking slightly for me video because we are going to be chopping and propping my giant monstera here. If you happen to watch my last video, I did mention how I wanted to chop this just because it's starting to look a little bit unruly. I don't really like how it was growing. And honestly, it's just a little bit too big for this space, so I kind of need to chop it for my own sanity. So if you've never chopped a monstera, it is pretty easy. It's one of the easier plants to propagate. So all you really need to chop is a nice pair of shears. If you don't have shears, scissors will suffice. Just make sure that they're clean. Mine look dirty, but I swear they're clean. It's just because these are my garden shears, so they're kind of stained. Yeah. And then of course you do want to figure out how you want to propagate afterward, whether you're doing water, moss, soil. Okay, so the first thing we want to do is figure out what we're keeping and also what we're going to be chopping. So looking in the pot, I have 3 separate stalks, and I'm definitely not going to keep all 3. So I don't know why I'm still holding this. So out of the 3, I'm going to keep the most mature looking one and the one that I just kind of like the best. And that is going to be this stalk over here. Now I'm not sure if I want to chop this stalk yet. So I will take that one out and just kind of decide after I'm finished what I want to do with that one. The leaves definitely look the most mature on that one. But regardless, when I take this stalk out, I'm going to have to repot it, so it's not going to stay in this pot anyway. Another thing, if you're doing this indoors like I am, for whatever reason, like for me it's snowing outside right now. So having one of those larger bats would definitely come in handy. This is all I really have to dump out soil in, so I know I'm gonna have to vacuum. But if you're someone that doesn't like to get anything messy, then maybe do this when it's warmer outside if you live in a colder climate. So I'm also not really sure how to do this. Alright, so we're gonna do the best we can. Okay, now that we have a good chunk of the soil out, we're gonna try to lift. And we don't want to lift literally by the stalks or the leaves, obviously, because we do not want to rip off our plant. Also, if you're having trouble loosening the roots, you don't want to just rip it up. I mean, obviously a little bit of the root system is unfortunately going to be damaged when you have a plant this large and you're doing this. But as long as you try to minimize the damage as much as you can, it'll totally be okay, especially if you do have a really mature root system. It's not going to be the worst thing. Also, I'm trying my best not to break off all of the aerial roots. I mean, that's going to mean almost nothing if I do break off the roots. There are people that cut them off themselves because they don't really like the look of them, but I think they're beautiful, so I don't really want to rip them off. Oh, I can feel the roots wound up on the bottom, which is crazy because this, I believe, was semi-recently put in this pot, so no wonder why I couldn't get it out. It's root bound. Okay, I'm trying to avoid a mess, but I know it's gonna make a mess. I think this is gonna... Whoa. Okay, I think it's time to cut from these stakes. This might be a little easier now. So this is what we're gonna do. We're gonna leave it in the pot, just kind of as is, as I'm cleaning up this dirt, and separate while it's still in the pot. Okay, now we're just gonna try to separate as neatly as we can. Like I said, I knew this was gonna make a mess, so I'm not worried. And same thing applies here. If you do end up ripping a little bit of the roots, it's okay as long as you're not ripping up too much or a major chunk of the root system. So you just want to kind of be gentle and wiggle instead of just one forceful rip, if that makes sense. Okay, so we got one separated. I just found this in the bottom of my pot and I don't know what it is. It's a piece of wood or a stake or something, and it's pretty much decaying. I don't know. Okay, so we've got them all separated. Okay, so we have stalk 1, which is definitely the smallest, the most immature of the 3. we have the second stalk, which is the most mature and the one that I'm probably gonna keep as is. I don't think I'm gonna chop it. Something crazy too is we have an aerial node right here, or aerial root now, and it just straight up grew into the soil and grew its own root system. So that's pretty cool. And then we have the second stalk, or third stalk right here, which is a good in-between size. We still have some larger leaves on the end with more fenestrations. I'm almost debating not chopping this one and planting it as is. I don't know yet. We'll see. I'm for sure chopping this one though, so we could start with this one since I know I'm not gonna change my mind. For this end, it doesn't really matter since this has literally the whole root system, so I could just leave this as is. I could chop right here if I wanted and just keep one leaf on the major root system, or I could even chop up here. It depends how big I want to keep the top half connected to this bottom part. There's no special way to cut this. What I do like to do though is cut a little larger or a little longer down here versus as close up here as I can, just in case I cut too much, because that is possible. And this is what we're left with, this top cutting. The reason why I wouldn't want to leave this bottom part, which I believe is called the inner node, so long is because if I'm water propping, it could be at a higher chance of rotting because there's so much here. So you do want to chop just a little bit closer to the root right here. That's a safe enough distance. And we want to let this callus off before throwing it in water or soil. Some people like to let it callus for a full 24 hours. Honestly, a few minutes, few hours is also fine. I've seen people just throw it straight in water or soil and be okay. I think as long as you don't have a large chunk down here, you'll be pretty safe. Yeah, I think this looks pretty good. Okay, we're gonna set that aside. Now we have this much smaller piece. So I honestly could just leave it like this. I mean, that would be totally fine, but I think I wanna chop off this one as well. It's so satisfying and also kind of nerve-wracking. Okay, so we have this super damaged up leaf and this little baby right here. That looks pretty good. And again, we're gonna do the same thing. We don't wanna leave this whole chunk right here. So we're gonna chop. And this bad boy, we're just gonna leave on here. 2 leaves, pretty nice root system, so good. Now we got 3 pieces from that one stalk. And now to decide what to do with this one. I think I am going to chop just because I kind of am in the mood now. And also the look of it right now just isn't the prettiest. Like there's a weird gap right here. I just don't like it, so I'm gonna chop it. And this one's a lot easier to see already. I can tell just by looking at it where this gap starts, that's where I want to cut. And I actually kind of really like the look of just these 3. So I think I'm gonna keep it. Actually, no, I'm not. I'm gonna cut it. We're left with a 1 leaf cutting, and I'm gonna chop just a little closer. Perfect. And then we're left with this very pretty 2 leaf cutting. Once you get going, it's honestly so fun. You can stop whenever you want. I could leave this as is and just let it do its thing. So I think we're just gonna continue with the 1 leaf thing. I'm kind of liking that. Woo. And we're gonna keep chopping. I like it with 2, so we're gonna leave it. Root system's intact. And we're left with this big baby, but again, I'm not cutting this one. I really love the growth of this one. It looks pretty good. I'm tempted to cut it because I'm already cut crazy or chopping crazy, whatever. But I don't want to regret it. I can always cut it later if I really want to, so I'm just gonna stop. This is so exciting. I feel rich in cuttings. So those 2 stalks gave me 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. I think 8. Let me recount. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Yes, gave me 8 cuttings of 1 and 2 leaf cuttings. So pretty much I have 8 new plants. Obviously a lot smaller than what they came off of, but more manageable, and I don't have to look at weird funky growth anymore. So obviously, since these are larger cuttings, we need larger vessels, so I just have a few jars that I will use. The hard part is done. All we have left to do is just submerge these into whatever we're using. Okay, I changed my mind about this. I think I'm gonna make this a single leaf. Now the tricky thing when propagating, when you have these long aerial roots, is kind of how to get them into your jar. All right, I gotta do it. I gotta trim this long boy. I have to. I think I'm going to do a few in water and a few in sphagnum moss, as long as I have enough moss. So I need to double check that really quick, but I think that'll be a cool little experiment. Okay, yeah, I think I'm gonna do these two in moss, see how they do, and then these ones I'm gonna leave in the jar. Hi, okay, so my camera died and it is still about to die, so I have to be quick. So we have this 2-leaf cutting and this 3-leaf cutting, and both of them in some spag moss. And then we have the other 4 cuttings, I believe. 5 cuttings in here, which I'm going to fill with water. And then the 2 that have the root base on, we have right here in pots. And then my giant stalk that I didn't cut, I'm about to repot. Whoa. And I think I'm still gonna use one of those wooden stakes in here. So I'm gonna go ahead and do that. Okay, so I'm all done. So again, here we have the 2 base cuttings that had the root systems. And here is the monstera that I'm keeping. This was the most mature stalk. So you can see that's what the pot size was previously. That's what it's in now. But yeah, I'm much happier with the size and look of this one. I kept this stake only because it gives it tons of room to grow, so it's perfect. And then here we have our 2 spag moss cuttings. So I'm very excited to see how well those will do versus the water cuttings, which are right here. So I'm really excited. Now that that's all done, I hope you learned something new about chopping and propping, or at least saw how easy it can be and how fun and not stressful it should be, even though I was a little nervous in the beginning, but you kind of get over it as you keep going. It's a great way to kind of give your plant a new look, especially if, like for me example, it was outgrowing the space and I wasn't going to chop any of my other plants, so this was the perfect solution. And now I have tons of cuttings that I can either give away, sell, or just keep and start another monstera plant in my house. And I will also definitely give an update on what does better, water propping or the spag moss. So keep an eye out for that. Yeah, so comment, let me know if you recently have chopped and propped any large plants, especially if it's a monstera, and let me know how that went for you. And also comment, let me know what your favorite propagation method is after you chop. I'm very curious. Okay, cool. So you can find me on other social media such as Instagram and TikTok, barely, but I'm there nonetheless. Anyway, have a good one wherever you live, and I'll see you later. Bye.